Hey friends, Ash here with Gents, coming at you guys with another list today. 5 niche fragrances to set yourself apart from the crowd, which really, if we're being honest, most niche fragrances would set you apart from the crowd because most people are going to be wearing designer fragrances or cheaper fragrances from Ross or TJ Maxx or something like that. So most of the time, niche fragrances are going to set you apart just because of their exclusivity, which is the whole point of them being niche fragrances, I guess, but still yet. That's what we're doing today. So some of these fragrances are going to be easier to wear than others. Some of these are going to be maybe slightly more challenging, especially if you are accustomed to just wearing designer fragrances. But I feel like each one of these fragrances is still very wearable, and each one of these fragrances in the right situations could be compliment pullers as well. So let's jump into this. Okay, so first up, I'm going to go with a fragrance from the house of Amouage. This is a fragrance that I like a lot. I've talked about it on the channel a few times over the years, though it is not one of their fragrances that's universally loved. It does have some detractors out there, and it's this one, Sunshine Men. And it could be just me, but I feel like my fragrance has gotten a little bit darker over the years, and yes, it has been stored correctly, and yes, it still smells just fine. But I don't know, I feel like it used to be a lighter yellow coloration. Doesn't really matter, some fragrances do change color over time. This one has lavender, immortelle, brandy, tonka, and vanilla as some of the notes in the fragrance. And while it's named Sunshine Men, it's maybe not what you would immediately think of when you think of a fragrance that has that name. So a lot of times I think when you see sun, sunshine, anything like that in a fragrance, it makes you think fresh or solar notes, aquatics, basically the type of fragrance you would wear outside when it's super hot. And while this is not a fall time fragrance or a wintertime fragrance per se, it does have a bit of depth to it, a bit of richness. It's sweet. It's got a little bit of a creamy feel. It's got some booziness as well. And lavender is going to be the main thing that you pick up here. But the lavender and sunshine, again, is going to be a little bit heftier than you would think in a typical lavender forward summertime scent. When you smell the fragrance, and I've got it right here, it comes across very sweet. As I said, a little bit creamy, a little bit dense, a little bit heavy. So for a lot of people, it may be more of a springtime fragrance than a summertime fragrance, but you can pull it off in summer. It's just, don't go too heavy because it can be very cloying in extreme heat. As I mentioned, Sunshine Men is not one of Amouage's universally loved fragrances. It does have a lot of people that think very highly of it, but this is not like Jubilation Man where 95% of people are gonna go, oh, what a masterpiece. But for me, it's a great fragrance. It smells different than most anything else you're ever gonna smell, but it still does have that potential complement factor, that versatility to the scent. So Sunshine Men, for me, a great fragrance, a great release from Amouage. Flies under the radar just a little bit. From there, let's go to this one from the house of Menthol, Honey Oud. And there were actually a few different menthol fragrances that I was thinking about putting in this list. It's just hard not to mention Honey Oud because this one is just fantastic. It's got cinnamon, amber, and vanilla, along with, of course, honey and oud as some of the notes in the fragrance. And this one is a very easy to wear oud fragrance from the house of Menthol. A lot of times, oud fragrances from Menthol are not really easy to get into if you're not already familiar with either oud, how it's used in Western perfumery, or Menthol in general, because their oud fragrances can be really screechy sometimes, very abrasive. They can be very aggressive. The performance with Menthol fragrances is typically pretty extreme. Longevity of 12 plus hours is not unusual from this house, and projection that can potentially fill up a room, also not unusual. And Menthol has lots and lots of oud fragrances, whether it's a fragrance directly based on oud with oud in the name like this one, or a fragrance that doesn't mention oud in the name but still has a heavy oud note. Montal's got a lot of that, and they have just a ton of fragrances in general, does Montal. So honey oud is a bit different than all those other Montal oud fragrances. This one, very sweet. The honey plays an extremely prominent role in this fragrance. It really takes the edge off of the oud in the scent. As I mentioned, there's also amber and vanilla, so you've got more warmth, more sweetness right there. You've also got cinnamon, again, helping with warmth, helping with sweetness, and that all contrasts with the oud and kind of plays off of it. So the oud never overtakes the scent. It never becomes too aggressive, never becomes too abrasive, never becomes too challenging. So while it is a Montal, and while it is an oud fragrance, and while it does have monstrous performance, because this one does, it will last a long time, and it will project very heavily, it's still wearable, and it can still pull compliments, and it's got a good amount of versatility in fall and especially winter. For me, if someone were just getting into oud fragrances and they wanted to try out a Montal and they liked sweet scents, I would say go for that one. It is great. First time I smelled it, fell in love with it, bought a bottle right away. Okay, now this next one is going to be a little bit more challenging. This one is not super easy to wear if you've only worn designer scents or you're not really into niche fragrances, but I think it's a really nice scent. And it's Taroni by Ordo Parisi. In case you're unaware of this house, it is done by the same person behind Nasamato, which is a little bit more well-known in the whole world of perfumery. Now, just like Nasamato, official notes are not given for any fragrances in this house. It does come across smelling at times earthy and smoky, a little bit ashy, slightly sweet as well, and a bit dry. It gets compared to Black Afghano by Nasamato. Again, same person behind that house as this house, so it's not really a huge surprise that there might be a little bit of a similarity there. But with this fragrance, I find it to be a little bit more wearable than Black Afghano on the whole, a little bit easier to pull off. It's not quite as dark as Black Afghano, but it is in the same style. So it's a similar scent, just maybe reined in a little bit, made a little more wearable. Now, even though I said it's reined in a little bit, made a little bit more wearable, it's still a monster. The performance on this fragrance, it's gonna last all day. It's gonna last all day, it's gonna project heavily, so it's not the kind of fragrance that you're gonna wear in the middle of summer. This one is gonna be more fall and wintertime, and really that's the type of scent this is anyway, with that smoky vibe that it has, that little bit of ashiness, that darkness, that little bit of earthiness that I mentioned before. Not really the kind of scent that you're gonna wanna wear when it's 90+ degrees Fahrenheit outside. But in fall and especially wintertime, if you wear that fragrance, it's definitely going to set you apart. And I don't mean to scare you or anything, it is wearable, but if you are just accustomed to, you know, Versace Dylan Blue, things like that, that one might be a little bit of a shock at first. Now let's go to this one, Mancera Black to Black. Not back to black, black to black. In case you're unaware, Mancera, Montal, essentially the same company. I mean, they do their own releases, but it's the same people behind each one of these. Okay, so Black to Black. This is a rose forward oud fragrance, but like Honey Oud, it's a wearable oud, especially if you're not really heavily into oud. The oud here is not going to be so animalic or funky that it's going to really turn you away. There's also saffron, leather, and patchouli in here. The saffron does a really good job providing this nice, sweet spiciness to the scent. Saffron, rose, and oud work together very well. So oftentimes in oud-based fragrances, you'll see those three notes together or a couple notes together. So oud and saffron, or oud and rose, or like in this one, all three. The fragrance is categorized as a unisex scent. For me, it leans a little bit masculine, which may be surprising because rose is one of the main notes in the scent, but don't worry, the rose here is not super feminine. It's not really powdery or anything like that. And that's kind of a recurring theme here. The performance of these fragrances, they're all above average. They're all very strong performers with great projection, great longevity. Black to black, very sophisticated smelling. It's got a good amount of sweetness in there, but not too heavy-handed with that sweetness. As it dries down, you're gonna pick up that oud, you're gonna pick up the leather, a little bit of patchouli in there as well. Just a fantastic fragrance, a really good one from Mancera that doesn't get talked about all that often. And that's one of the easier rose, saffron, and oud-based fragrances to pick up on the niche side of things and wear. It's not overly challenging. Mancera typically is not super expensive from discounters, and then you get that good performance as well. And last up, a fragrance from the house of Milano Tango. And yeah, you can look at the coloration there and you can tell that this one is going to be more, again, for fall and winter time. Not too many summertime fragrances are going to be that color. Yeah. This one has cumin, tonka, cinnamon, benzoin, and amber as some of the notes in the fragrance, and this one is very sweet. This is a very sweet amber. Actually, when you first spray it on, it's got kind of a like syrupy sweetness to the scent. As it dries down, you are going to pick up a bit of that spice, again, mainly cumin and cinnamon in that order. And once you hit that full dry down, you're going to get even more sweetness from the benzoin and the tonka. It's a very warm fragrance overall. Projection, very good. Longevity, very good, as I've mentioned many times, which is great for this because, I mean, that's not a huge bottle. That's 35 milliliters, and that is the size that this comes in. So thankfully, a little bit here goes a long way. This is a house that I've not been let down by yet. I have a few of these, and I would like to get many more because the fragrances that I have so far are very good. And this one is no different. One of the better amber fragrances that I have, though it's not really a straight up amber only scent. There's other things going on here, obviously, but one of the better ambers I have in my fragrance collection. And this one definitely gonna set you apart. And with the sweetness that it has, that's very appealing. So again, potential compliment puller as well. Good amount of versatility with this one, but again, more wintertime and fall time. I wouldn't go for it in spring or summer. It's a bit much for that, at least in terms of being potentially cloying, because in spring or summertime, something with that amount of performance, with that amount of sweetness, I'd go for something different. All right, guys, it's gonna do it for me. 5 niche fragrances that are honestly all really powerful to set yourself apart from the crowd. Again, shout out to all you guys that have been sending me emails and sending me video requests. I'm gonna work through them, but it's gonna take a while, like I keep saying. So thanks for being patient with me. Stay safe out there, guys. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video.